All right, we're back. Episode 6, Boots and Scarves. Your host with the most, Anton. Steph in the next room. Shout out to Stuart, all the way from Glasgow, Scotland. Michael, my local favorite YouTuber and supreme friend, as well as our Bytown Boys president, Jessica. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Great.
I'm all right.
Now, I've been following the 67 since about 1995, 1996. And lots has happened since. So, like, you know, a lot of incredible memories, a lot of incredible rivalries, and a lot of downs as well, because that's the nature of sports. There was a down period where, you know, I guess ownership was trying to figure out, you know, what are we going to do to turn this around and make this an attraction again for fans to come back, because that's the fickleness of junior hockey. And the man who absolutely saved the 67s from who knows what terrible fate is our guest today. Everyone welcome Jeff Hunt.
Cheers.
Hey, cheers. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Pleasure.
I was trying to think of an intro all week. I hope I did it justice.
Well, usually, that's where most people start with me is the Ottawa 67. That's certainly what I guess I'm most associated with in sports in Ottawa. So, and I, like you, have many fond memories, but also some painful ones along the way. But that's what makes sports so much fun. The highs are high, but the lows can be low as well. And everybody on this call has probably experienced both sides of that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we have 11 questions. In between, you know, first one is for Jeff right off the bat, and then, you know, 2 for everyone, another for Jeff, and so on and so forth. So right off the rip, Jeff, like most athletes, you know, like pregame, they've got their routines and stuff. So in a pinch, do you have a go-to pregame meal, and what is it?
Well, and by the way, Jessica did send me the questions, but I didn't. In fact, I usually don't like to know the questions in advance. That way, I can be more spontaneous. So I gave them a quick look, but I didn't have pre-prepared answers. And truthfully, when it comes to pregame preparation, I can't say that I have a go-to meal. You know, like most athletes would, you know, whether it's chicken and pasta or some version of that. I find that's the most common. I don't have any of those superstitions. I kind of learned a long time ago that I'll leave the superstitions to the players and coaches. And I'll give you one real quick story. You mentioned the 67s. The morning I was driving for the final game of the Memorial Cup, and I was imagining both scenarios about winning and losing. And then I was imagining winning and popping champagne and spraying the dressing room. And then I realized, who brings the champagne if you win? And I kind of like, well, good question. Who, you see all that champagne in dressing rooms after teams win, who organizes that? And I had no clue. And I didn't want to ask Brian Kilray that. He'd have killed me because he was very superstitious. So I basically figured out that I've got to go buy champagne. And even then I wasn't superstitious, but that still felt weird to me. And we went out and we bought cases of champagne. I said, don't let anybody see you bring these in here. Don't, you know, just keep them. Let's never speak of this, you know, especially if we don't win. And so we ended up winning in overtime, and thank God I had that thought on the way, because it would have been a pretty depressing celebration with no champagne.
That's great. That's hilarious.
Uh-huh.
Great. I keep that in mind for future stories to tell people.
All
so
right.
no pregame meal, but pregame thoughts sometimes.
About alcohol.
About alcohol, that's right. And you can think about alcohol at 9 a.m. That's a good thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm a Villa fan. That's called mandatory.
Yes.
So our first group question today comes from Dylan, and the last time Dylan submitted a question, I actually forgot to mention his name because usually I'm really good at mentioning who submits what. So I made sure that his question was the first one, just out of respect. So let's go with Stuart, since you're the furthest away. What will it take for Ottawa citizens to not be labeled as quote unquote Fairweather fans when it comes to their sports teams?
I'm not quite sure if there's any one specific thing that citizens would need to do to lose that label, but I think what they've done with the RedBlacks has proved that if you have a winning team and then they have a year or two where they don't win, but they're still good, they're still competitive, they're still trying hard, the fans will remain there. I think what you see with the Sens has a lot more to do with anger towards ownership, and the owner didn't do any help there. But I think if you get the right group of owners in, just like I think OSEG are a good group of owners for the 67s, for the RedBlacks, you got Atletico in for the new football team. You've got, if the Senators got a new owner, one that would please the fans, I think they'd be more content to showing up and supporting a losing team. But it is hard. It's hard for almost any city, unless you're, Toronto or New York, to sell out games even when you're losing. But I think having the right owners in place will give the citizens more courage to go and see their team when they're not doing so well.
Michael?
Yeah, I don't know if there's actually a solid answer to this. I agree with Stu. When it looks at the Sounders, you look at ownership. I mean, it was only a couple of years ago they went to the conference finals and they had trouble selling those tickets against the Penguins, and you had one of the best players in the game in that series. So when you have a hard time looking at that. Again, you look at the RedBlacks. They had one bad year last year, but they've won championships and they've gotten to the finals multiple times since being back. I think with Ottawa, it's a mixture of success, but the owners have to show they care and they're there to invest. You see players like Eric Carlson walking, and then you throw big money on Shabbat, and then you got to get people questioning what's going on in there. So I think it's a mixture of success and a good ownership, but it's upsetting to see Ottawa have the title they have.
So, Stefan?
I'm going to channel my inner Terry, so I'm going to act like my dad, which shouldn't be hard to do. It's not really a sports. I think it's more culture. We're a government town, so you're taught not to rock the boat, follow the trend. If the trend, it doesn't matter who sets the trend. There's a trend, follow it. I think it's something you get from man-made capital cities like Ottawa, Brasilia, Canberra, Lima, Bridgetown, and Islamabad. Cities that exist just for the sole purpose of being the capital, not really developing as the capital. Yes, I did do research on some of those. I knew two of them. I just didn't know the rest, so I looked it up because, well, I'm bored at work. So if we can break that culture stereotype as a government town, then I think we can start growing some dedication. But that don't follow the trend, don't break the trend. Oh, this is the flavor of the week. Everybody must like vanilla ice cream. Okay, I like vanilla. Back of your mind, this is the grossest thing I've ever eaten in my life. But you have to like it because it's the trend. So,
Jess?
I have to agree with Stuart and Michael. It has a lot to do with the ownership and how the team is performing. So I don't know exactly what we would need to do to lose that label of a Fairweather fans.
Okay. Jeff, you want to take a crack at it?
Well, I would say a couple things. I think Ottawa fans have been unfairly categorized as maybe not as intense as some of our brothers or sister cities in Canada, like Toronto, Montreal. Montreal's got the Montreal Canadiens, but it's a one-trick pony, really. I know the Impact have been kind of doing well. But but the other thing is, I don't know that Fairweather is such a bad word. Really, in my mind, Fairweather means discriminating. I used to say this, when talking about sports. I said, that's like saying people in Ottawa don't like restaurants. Of course they like restaurants, but they want good restaurants. They want good value. They want great food. And if it's not, they're not going to bother. And I think it's the same with sports teams. It's no real radically different approach. If it's a good team, it's a good fun product. If the pricing is reasonable, then I think Ottawa will respond as we've seen over and over again. Even with the RedBlacks return, Ottawa wasn't anti-football. It just was anti-bad football, and it would be anti-bad soccer, and it'll be anti-bad hockey. But put on a good product, and fans will come.
So our next question comes from our good friend Eric Beavis, who is asking, given the history of our city sports market, does it make sense to try and keep bringing in new teams and new sports such as soccer, rugby, and basketball? So I'll let Stefan go.
This one's up in the air. It's a yes and no. Business-wise, you have to find what works, what draws in crowds. If you're going to say, well, I'm going to have competitive badminton league, yet nobody attends, but you're still going to have it, that's a bad business decision. But if you notice people would rather watch squash over badminton, why would you not bring in squash and get rid of badminton? The thing is, hold on, I wrote it down. My teacher will be proud of me. In the end, it comes down to finances. We need to find the discretionary income in the city, which groups it's affiliated, where is it, and are they willing to part with it, and for what? Bringing in the other sports franchises is a good idea, especially with the facilities at Lansdowne. And the past couple of years, the Lansdowne ground crew has proven they know how to turn that field over in a heartbeat. So I have no qualms. Like, that crew in that stadium, in that facility, is on the ball when it comes to changeover. So I don't see them not being able to rise to that challenge, but it's finding that market that will accept the product. So it does look very yo-yo-ish, trying to bring in this team or that team, but we have to step back and realize you got to find out what works in this market. You can't bring in a franchise. Go, oh yeah, it'll work. Why? Well, Johnny and Susie have 20,000 friends that play it. Yeah, but maybe their 20,000 friends rather play it than watch it. So, yeah, it's a yes and no. As long as the research is done, interest is shown, and it doesn't really bother. But if you're just bringing it in for the sake of bringing it in, then.
All right. Michael.
Sorry. I kind of on the same track there. It's a weird question because, even if you disagree with it, we're still bringing in a bunch of teams. We brought in a new basketball team. We're looking at a rugby team, which I'm actually very interested to see is the rugby team. I think that will do surprisingly well in attendance. That's why I want to kind of drive this question. I don't think the basketball one was maybe the best choice to bring here, in my opinion. It was kind of a random one, and I'm not sure what it was doing for attendance before all this coronavirus stuff. Maybe it was doing well, I don't know. But rugby seems to be very much growing in this country, and I think it's a good way to get people and more youth involved. A lot of people are introduced into it in Ottawa, at least at an older age, like high school, maybe middle school. So getting kids maybe more involved. Canada has a pretty good rugby team to begin with. So I think the rugby one's really interesting, and I can't wait to see where that goes. But it's a weird question, and I don't think there's a yes or no answer to it.
Jeff.
Yeah, listen, I think it's great that all of these sports teams are trying to test the markets in Ottawa and see if there's an appetite for rugby or professional basketball or soccer. I guess, it still remains to be seen to some extent how the market will ultimately embrace soccer. And I know, speaking with my OSEG hat on, we need the traffic. We need the events. This place was designed and built to have 4 or 5 million people a year, and we're at about 3.5. And the great thing about a team coming like Atletico is it's 15 to 20 potential gate dates a year at minimum 5,000 if we just picked up where the Fury left off. And I obviously hope we'll do a lot better. I mean, that's 100,000 plus annual visitors every year that the site can count on. And, even if some of these teams can get by with pretty modest attendance, I think the basketball break even is 3,000 a game or something, 2,500. So, that's not a huge expectation. So I'm hoping they all succeed because I really believe it makes for a more vibrant and exciting place to live.
Jess.
I find that with Steph and Michael that, there is no really yes or no to this question because depending on what kind of sport is new to Ottawa depends on whether or not the fans show up or there's a buzz. We've had a couple of baseball teams and that didn't go very well. We have we have the new basketball team and now we have Atletico Ottawa, and I find that when they were announced and that they were coming to Ottawa, there was a buzz, there's talk. So there's really no yes or no to this question.
And Stuart.
For me, I think the answer is yes, they should keep trying. I think you kind of keep bringing in new stuff and see what works. And if it doesn't work, then maybe future owners won't want to try. But if you look at what happened with soccer, you had John Pugh started the Fury with the PDL, and then OSEG saw what was going on there and that it was working. They worked with him. They brought in Fury. Fury didn't quite work out for other reasons, but they see that soccer works. So now Atletico Ottawa wants to come in. So even though there has been, I wouldn't call Fury a failure, but even though there has been clubs and teams that have folded for various reasons, it seems like there's still enough attraction there. And to add to what Jeff said, Lansdowne was built to be a multi-facet facility. If you look at the stats here, I just pulled them up quick. In Canada, the fastest growing regions are number 1, Kitchener and Waterloo, and then tied for number 2 are London, Ontario, and Ottawa-Gatineau. So Ottawa and Gatineau is growing very quickly. It's growing a lot. And I think having a place like Lansdowne makes it workable for new rugby teams, new soccer teams, new basketball teams that aren't part of the OSEG umbrella, but are working with OSEG to use the facilities to ensure that at Lansdowne you can have football one day, rugby the next, soccer the day after that, a concert, some hockey, basketball. And I think having all that in the center of the city, because obviously the big thing around the Senators is the stadium being out in the boonies. So I think having all of that in the middle of the city, for me, says yes, go ahead, try as many teams as you can. If the Blackjacks fail, fine, bring in curling, maybe host the Briar. There's all these different things that you can do with the facilities that are there, and I think it's very much a case of just keep trying until you find out what works.
All right, next question for Jeff specifically. So you're living in Ottawa by way of Newfoundland, your place of origin, and aside from the Halifax Wanderers in the CPL, do you foresee the East Coast of Canada getting more professional sports franchises?
Definitely. I mean, obviously the CPL, one of its, if not flagship location in year one was Halifax, and nobody was surprised by that, especially me. I knew Halifax would embrace that. The Maritimes have really no professional sports, and they've had American Hockey League teams, but I think there's a huge, there's a feeling of we're big boys now too, and we want to be involved in professional sports. The CFL's been trying to do something in Halifax, but even though the team would be located in Halifax, it was meant to be a maritime team, just like Saskatchewan Roughriders are not a Regina team; they're a whole province. And I think that Halifax was going to, in fact, I think they were going to be called the something Nova Scotia, not even Halifax. So I definitely think that there's more room to go for the CPL. That's for sure in the Maritimes, and I think Maritimes are proud as a group, but within each other, they're very competitive. And if you had a New Brunswick team and you had a PEI team maybe, and you had St. John's, Newfoundland, or whatever, a little division of the CPL, for example, I think it would do phenomenally well.
All right, next question comes from Paul Quinnell. Michael, I'll get you to start this one. So, which Ottawa-based sports team was your favorite of all time, if you have one?
Well, because I am a Maple Leafs fan in the NHL, my all-time favorite Ottawa-based team would have to be the Ottawa Fury in the past. But now that we have Atletico, that'll definitely be my number one Ottawa team. Yeah, there's not much more to go on that. I've never really gone to minor hockey deep other than the World Juniors, and basketball and football's never been huge on me. I'm more of a soccer hockey guy, so I'll say the Ottawa Fury, but switch on over to Atletico right now.
Stefan?
Simple. Capital City FC, the team that started the group and my passion to stay as a supporter. So there's no, even though you'll get the other answer. In a different, more to come, part 2.
Jessica?
I'm not going to choose any team in particular because I support all of Ottawa's teams.
Okay.
Good.
Stuart?
So much like Michael, I grew up just outside Toronto, so in Burlington. So I've never been big into the CFL, but I was a Ticats fan when I was younger. Now I do support the RedBlacks, but just not with the same gusto I did Ottawa Fury. But because Fury's already been used, I'm gonna say that my favorite sports team of all history in Ottawa is the 67s. I think that they've been such they've had their ups, their downs, they have the history that you need. I think that they're an iconic OHL team, and I think they do so much for the community, and especially for junior hockey. I think it's amazing, especially what they've been doing in the last couple of seasons has shown that that there's a lot of quality in junior hockey. And I'm a big supporter of lower league sports, non-professional sports, and I think the 67s are the best of the best when it comes to that level of hockey.
And Jeff?
Well, I can't beat that. I mean, there's no doubt the 67s would be my easy runaway favorite. But I guess like Jessica, I also have always supported Ottawa teams. I loved the Rough Riders when I moved here. I loved the Senators. I was a long time. I actually walked to the rink not knowing who I was going to cheer for. But I instantly became a Senator fan that night, and they beat Montreal that night. That was one of the only wins they had that year, but they won that night. I'm an Ottawa sports fan for sure. But 67s have a special place.
All right. Next question comes from our president, Jessica. So, Jessica, share your very first memory of going to a sporting event of any kind in Ottawa.
So I think I was about between the ages of 7 and 9, not entirely sure. We moved to Ottawa, and my dad with work won tickets to go see a football game. So we were sitting on the north side, and we had gone to see Ottawa Rough Riders against the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. I don't remember if they won or lost, but just sitting towards the very, very top of the north side and being able to watch a sporting event here in Ottawa, and I actually had a lot of fun.
Stuart?
So I moved to Ottawa in 2007, so there was there's a lot of sports we have now that didn't exist then in Ottawa. My first ever sporting event probably would have been a university, a U Ottawa hockey game, but when it comes to the bigger teams, I probably definitely Sens, Leafs, Battle of Ontario. I moved in 2007, it probably would have been spring of 2008, so it was just after the Senators had done their Stanley Cup run. They were amazing. Leafs were not very good, but it is what it is. And that was probably my first Ottawa sporting event.
Michael?
So I'm not sure how old I was. I was pretty young, and it was either the Ottawa Senators versus Vancouver or the St. Louis Blues. It was a very special moment, even though I don't remember exactly what game it is. It was a very special moment for me. Just my parents both came over from England, so me and my brother, who really got into hockey, got my parents really into hockey at the time. And the reason we got the tickets is because me and my twin both have cystic fibrosis. And Wade Redden at the time was a huge advocate for CF, and he had a box at the time, the Corral Center, called Wayne's World. And he would donate tickets to the hospital, and we got tickets through them. And we went to a lot of games when we were that young because of Wade Redden, and that's what really got us into hockey, or a good jump start to it.
Jeff?
Well, yeah, I've listened to you guys talk, and I know my first Ottawa sporting event because I moved to Ottawa in '84, and it would have been a Rough Rider game, but I wish I could say it would have been a '67 game because they won their first Memorial Cup in 1984. So I don't know if that was an omen or not, but I don't think I went to a '67 game during that year. But so it would have been a Rough Rider game, and I bought season tickets as soon as we moved to Ottawa, and I never missed a game.
And Stefan?
Okay. Year was 95, 10 years old, visiting Canada from Jamaica. My cousin Genevieve and Francois, my uncle Donald, took me to, back then, the Civic Center to watch an Ottawa Loggers roller hockey league game.
Yeah.
What I remember of it is where we would have the car display, the old car display. There was a hot tub there during the game. We were in the hot tub, drinks and food was being brought to them. But that was my first professional game I remember attending here in Ottawa.
All right, next question for Jeff. What was or is the attraction of having and being part of a soccer franchise?
Well, as you know, I had a brief time where I was a partner in the Fury, and I was the one that brought John Pugh into OSEG. And you guys may recall that at the time we were in a pitched battle with Eugene Melnick and his plans to put an MLS team in Canada. And I was quite surprised that the market was split 50-50. We did polling. Half the market, because it became a football versus soccer discussion, if you guys remember that. And so I said, well, listen, I had lunch with John Pugh initially by myself, and then I came to my partners and said, guys, we could lose to Eugene Melnick, and we could lose our whole thing because we don't have a solution for soccer. Why don't we have a solution for soccer? And I told him about John, and so I won't say it was because I was a longtime fan of soccer that I did it. But it made sense. We could add another team with the same overhead, the same infrastructure. The cost of running a third team would be a fraction of if we just had an infrastructure solely to run that team. So that's kind of what got me initially into soccer. And I'll admit that I was a fringe soccer fan at that point. But when I started to see, and I used to stand and watch some games on the field and see the athleticism and the skill and how rough that game can be. You know, in hockey, if you come from that, which is where I came from, you kind of think soccer is not, the man's sport that hockey is, kind of thing. But you realize when you watch these guys compete, it's a rough and tough sport. And so I did gain a lot of respect for the game, and that's why I'm thrilled that we've got another chance, with Atletico. And I think that's going to be a big difference, that brand. I've already heard many, many anecdotes from people who never went to a Fury game, but are not only going to go to Atletico games, they've bought season tickets already. Wow. It's that dramatic. So we're very excited about that.
That's
if
great.
Only we could play. If only we could play.
All that research for the road trip gone down the drain.
We've got a building itch going on. So next question comes from our friend Stuart. So Stuart, Name your all-time favorite Ottawa sports moment.
All right, so I kind of want to say too. If my question, so I should know what it means. But if it means in Ottawa, the Minnesota United semifinal win was unreal. That was such a great night. Tommy Heineman scored the extra goal or the extra time goal. But if we're just talking about Ottawa sports moments in general, in 2015, I was doing social media for Fury, and I was doing a bit of stuff on the side for TSN. And thank you, Jeff Hunt. OSEG paid for me to go down to New York, and I got to go watch that game. Unfortunately, they lost, but it was being with the players after the game. They were so humble, and they had such a great season. I got to interview Mark DeSantos for TSN after the game, and he was such a great person to have in Ottawa. And I'll never forget that entire trip down to New York. Out into Long Island watching the game. I know Jeff was there. I think it was Randy Evers that helped set up to make sure that the social media team could go down, which meant a lot to us. And that was probably my favorite Ottawa sports moment ever.
Michael?
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a broken record on this podcast mentioning the Minnesota game and then going to the New York finals. I think it's been mentioned everyone on this podcast. That would definitely be I think that'd be my favorite Ottawa moment, but I'll give a different answer since Stu said that one. And other than Toronto beating Ottawa in the playoffs all those years ago, I'm going to go with Ottawa Senators going to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2007. Even though I'm a Leafs fan, you get wrapped up in stuff like that, and you see the excitement, and you get excited for it in a sense as well. And it's just fun to watch and to see it in your city. Like anything that happens in your city, bad or good, you feel it more than other people. And I'm not a Sens fan, but you definitely get wrapped up in it. There was so much excitement, and Ottawa got killed in the finals. But you know what? It was fun to see, and it sucked getting it rubbed in my face when my brother is saying, "We're in the finals. When was the last time you were there?" And you know what? Other than that, I didn't jump on the wagon, but I wouldn't say I wanted to see them lose either.
Jessica?
I'm going to go with 3 years ago, my dad won tickets at a Grey Cup or Super Bowl party, and it was for Fury, and they were in the Labatt box. So I've never sat in a box before. So just being able to we had our beer covered, we got free food. So just being able to sit in the box, and it just so happened my dad and I were the only ones in the box that day, but just being able to sit in the box and to experience that for the first time was
wow, crown royalty, eh? So, Jeff.
Well, I mean, I guess for me, I'd have to say the '99 Memorial Cup, which I already mentioned, but that was a in Ottawa moment and a big deal for an Ottawa team, and to win in overtime. And I'll just the lasting memory is I remember looking up at the clock and seeing the score 6-7. Of course, it was 7-6, but the way it read on the clock was 6-7.
Right.
And I thought, that if you're into numerology or whatever, then that was pretty special.
Stefan.
All right, so I figured everyone would go with Fury related, and I'm not going to lie, the game where more or less the whole team just gang-banged Anton from the supporter section is always a good memory to relive. But it was my dad had won season tickets to the Renegades' second season at the bar. My dad winning something at the bar, go figure. So date, July 31st, 2003. The Renegades were playing at Edmonton. My dad said, in Edmonton's heyday, unless you had a 4-touchdown lead with 5 minutes to go, you weren't winning the game. So I went, okay, well, we're not playing that well, but it's fun to come. So we enjoyed a party. Third quarter, Ottawa started making a comeback that they did not deserve. They had no business. They did lose, but they only lost by 5 points, 31-26. Yes, I did research on this. I remember this game that year. It was an amazing game, even though it was a loss, because the Renegades fans were leaving the stadium excited. Hey, if we can pull that off next time, we're going to win these games. If we could just keep that style of momentum going. So that was my first real amazing sports moment in the city.
I'll share mine. It was, I think, 96, because it was after the Lynx had won the championship. And my dad took me to my first baseball game. First batter, first pitch, first home run. And that is a memory that that we shared together that we still talk about to this day. So I just figured I wanted to throw that in there. So next question comes from Michael. Michael, I'll get you to start. So does Ottawa offer a different sporting experience that other towns or cities in Canada may not offer?
I don't know if it's experience, but we offer variety for sure. Now we're getting the basketball rugby team in, and we used to have a baseball team. I'm not sure if they're still around. But we have basically every possible sporting event if you want to go watch when it's there. And I find a lot of the games, even with the Senators, they are family friendly. And a lot of people like that. Some people don't, especially if you're going to Sens games. A lot of people won't really care for it. And I'm not one who cares for family friendly. If it's there, it's there. If not, I don't mind. But if you, if you look other than Toronto and maybe Montreal, Ottawa probably offers some of the most professional teams in the country that I can think of. So experience, I don't know, but we definitely offer variety.
Jeff?
Yeah, that's a good question. Different. I mean, I think with TD Place, especially the outdoor component, it's not unusual to see downtown and Montreal with the Alouettes where they play is a phenomenal. To watch a game there on a Friday night in the summer and see the Montreal skyline is pretty cool. But you know, here in Ottawa, we've got a pretty special thing going here at TD Place. I think that you know, most of the stadiums are the only one I can think of that's right downtown other than Montreal is Vancouver, and that's an enclosed situation. So I think for the backdrop of the canal and you know, you've got condominium building right inside the stadium. I mean, there's some neat, unique features about TD Place that I've not, in some cases, I haven't seen anywhere else in the world, never mind in Canada.
Right. Stephen?
Well, I've only watched Ottawa in footy and in OHL away, and it's mostly Toronto. So, yeah, it's more of a family-friendly atmosphere. Like, I went and saw the 67s with Anton Peterborough. There wasn't much of a difference. Same thing with – actually, Kingston was a bit more drinking, I found, than Ottawa. Belleville, I don't know what they were doing when I was down there. Maybe because I was in college. So, but I think Ottawa tends to offer more family-friendly. The handful of games I've been to the past couple of years with the 67s, even though they're family-friendly, they tried to make it adult inclusive, so the adult jokes and Looney Tunes mentality. Kids see a cartoon, adults get the jokes. So on the surface, it looks adult, but below there's something there for the adults involved as well. So maybe they're drawing that line, but again, I haven't really been much to other areas. Like I know TFC games, in their supporter section, you start cracking jokes, some of them get upset at you because you're having fun. You're laughing. Not going to mention the black-clad guys.
Jessica.
I have to say with the redesigned TD Place, in the summertime, there's the farmer's market. There's stuff that goes on in the Aberdeen Pavilion. There's restaurants. There's the cinema. There's a lot of foot traffic in or around TD Place. If you go to Sudbury, there's not at the arena. There's not much there. There's not much around it. There's maybe a Wild Wings that is there. So I find that we have different activities that go on at the same time as the sporting events. So I find that we bring a lot of variety and a lot of different experiences to Ottawa.
Stuart.
Yeah, I'm kind of going with Jessica and stealing Jeff's answer here. I think the one thing Ottawa offers that other cities don't is Lansdowne Park. And that's TD Place with the football stadium, with the hockey rink. You have all the restaurants. And then beyond Lansdowne, you also have the canal. There's the green space there. It's within walking distance of most people in Centertown, Sandy Hill. I mean, even Westboro. I used to walk from Maryville Road in Carlington. Like, it's not that far from a lot of places. You can get the buses in there easy. They offer so much at Lansdowne beyond even just the sports. You get great concerts. I mean, AC/DC was there. How great is that? So I think when you look at what went on with Lansdowne, when I moved to Ottawa in 2007 was when the stadium was starting to crumble and they couldn't use it anymore. OSEG had to jump through all kinds of hoops to get that built back up. You had the Friends of the Glebe trying to shut it down and all complaining and moaning. But I think
one of them's my aunt, okay?
But I think that Lansdowne has shown that it's very workable. It's a great place to have. You can each night of the week you could have something different. It has great pubs, great restaurants. It's got the cinema, and it's got the canal. I mean, that's something you don't get anywhere else in Canada. And like Jeff said, I haven't seen anything else like that in the world where it's all part of the same grounds.
All right.
I just want to add on to Stuart. The one thing I've known people in Montreal, Toronto, and people from Vancouver and Edmonton are actually jealous of, and other CanPL fans, the deal with OC Transpo. The 3 hours before, 3 hours after, they are jealous of that. And that, whoever thought of that, buy him a beer. That's an amazing.
He might be on this podcast.
Yeah, why? Next time I see him, I'll buy him a beer. I don't care. It would kind of be informal to have dial a bottle show up just with one beer. It doesn't feel right.
So we're into the last two questions, but the last one for Jeff specifically. So given the fact that it offers many things, like how important is it to the city of Ottawa to have Lansdowne Park, as we were just discussing?
Well, when we were making the case to the city and to the citizens, because there was a big price tag that came to the city, 130 odd million, why spend that kind of money? And, a lot of the things that we've seen happen here were the why. It's hard to put a dollar value on civic pride and just having a vibrant city with things to do. I argued at the time that a world-class stadium is vital infrastructure that any especially a city the size of Ottawa has to have. It's not a nice to have. I think you have to have those things. And we had World Cup, we've had Grey Cup, outdoor game, and the day-to-day Fury games, 67s games. RedBlacks games. Now we've got other teams coming. I think Lansdowne's delivered everything that everybody wanted to see here, even if you didn't care about sports. Jessica mentioned the farmers market. That was a place without a home without Lansdowne. And would there be things we would have done differently? For sure, but and some of those things can still be done. We talked about an aquarium going in Aberdeen, and at the time it got mixed reaction, a walk-through aquarium, but I think that's still an idea that could be pursued. So the things that we've been able to do here, I think very few people would argue hasn't made Ottawa a better place to live.
Just to add to that, I've been to Toronto where they have the Ripley's Aquarium, and it's a huge success. It's massive success. It's always packed. So just give me my thumbs up.
That's the exact style of aquarium we were looking at for Aberdeen. And I still think that that's something to pursue. And we still have to bring more and more visitors to Lansdowne. We still need those ideas. So we're not there yet.
All right. So last question of the day comes from Stefan. And this is one that kind of pertains to, the ongoing joke that we have a revolving door of teams in Ottawa. So name a former Ottawa sports franchise that you would love to see resurrected from the dead.
All right. So even though it's my question, it's going to be hard to say. So, because even though the franchise I loved and adored got buried, got a new one, got buried, it's in the same genre. So instead of trying to revive the dead when we already have the living, I figure we should splash a new coat on it. No longer Atletico Ottawa, Atletico Capital City. There we go. I'm not trying to dig up the dead. I'm just trying, you know what? Let's change the clothes a bit. Not too much, just enough.
Interesting.
Michael.
So I'm on a similar track here, but I would keep Atletico and I'd bring back the Fury and make them play on the other part of town. Bring in a whole Ottawa derby. I think it'd be awesome. Make them wear different colors. We'll have the city in the splits, like kind of like Liverpool and Everton. City's red, city's blue, and I want to see good old Ottawa derby.
Police.
I want to split the city in half and have some fun with it. And I think this will be the best away games and home games.
North versus South.
Exactly.
Stuart.
All right, so I'm going to cheat on this question like I do on a lot of questions. I'm not going for a franchise, but I was digging into Ottawa history a while ago. And one of the unique things I found out, I kind of knew that Lansdowne had a racetrack around it at one point. But Lansdowne Park in 1925 was known as the Mecca for motorists. And there used to be racetrack that would go around the pitch. If I could bring back one sport to Ottawa, I would love to see motor racing. In any form, in any way, I think it would be great. I'm not sure if it would be a big success, but I think it would offer something different from all the other sports.
Drag racing.
Just any kind, like like rally racing, or through the Gatineau Hills, you could have Formula One down Bank Street. Who knows? But I think that having some motor racing would be a great thing for Ottawa. It'd be lots of fun.
Jessica.
It goes flying into the Starbucks.
I'm going to go with Ottawa Rebels, so it's the Ottawa lacrosse team. I happened to stumble upon the lacrosse when there was one day nothing else on to watch, and I was flipping through the channels, and I happened to see the Ottawa Rebel, and I sat down and I watched the game. I believe they were playing Montreal when I turned it on, and I don't remember if they won or lost.
And finally, Jeff.
Yeah, I temporarily forgot about the lacrosse team, but I was going to partner with those guys, but they were in such a rush. I wanted to launch it at the Civic Center, and in partnership with them, but they wanted to do it a year quicker than I wanted to do it, and they went out to Scotiabank, which I think was the death of them, because, as they say, you only get one chance at a first impression. And they opened, with 4,000 or 5,000 people in a 20,000 seat stadium. And that was the image right from the get-go. And that's hard to shake. By the time they came here, they were already kind of on their way out of the city. But I would say, it would be low-hanging fruit to say soccer died and it's come back. But everybody knows that already. I would have to say Lynx baseball. When that was hopping, that was a sunny afternoon in July or August, watching a baseball game, having a cold beer. I know we have baseball, and I hear it's a great experience. I haven't been, but when you had that affiliated ball, these guys were a step away from the major leagues, and I think that's the one I guess I'd say I missed the most, that are gone.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for your time. Stuart, did you want to plug in our social media stuff?
Yeah, so you can find us on all the social media platforms. You can find us on YouTube at Bytown Boys. You can find us on Facebook. We have both a page and a group. We have our Twitter page at Bytown Boys, and we also have the Boot Scarves Twitter page as well. Add to that, you can follow our guest, Jeff Hunt, on Twitter at JeffHuntOT. And I highly suggest everyone goes out to the BBC Sports website and reads a wonderful article that was posted up today, all about Atletico Ottawa. It included us Bytown Boys and mentions this podcast. I think it was great to see that coverage out there. As someone who lives in Britain, it was great to see. And I think that kind of alludes to what Jeff was saying before was, you just mentioned Atletico's name and people's ears kind of perk up. This was stuff you wouldn't have got with any other CPL team in the UK. So I highly suggest going and checking out that fantastic article. Thanks to Aaron Hooper from the Bytown Boys who conducted that interview.
Well, thank you, Stuart, all the way from Scotland. Thank you, Michael. Check out his YouTube, Michael McCall, MCCALL. Very fun content. Shout out our president, Jessica, my roommate, Stefan, and thank you, Jeff, so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We really appreciate it.
Well, listen, I appreciate being invited, and I appreciate everything that you guys do to historically create lots of buzz and ambiance. One of the things I'm getting used to in soccer is that it's all about the fans. In hockey and football, we choreograph every stoppage in play and every moment. But in soccer or football, you guys are the show. Of course, with the players on the field naturally being a big part of it too. But you guys make the experience, and I hope we can grow your group and grow the supporters in Ottawa to even bigger levels as we go forward.
Anton, can I add something quickly before we sign off?
Absolutely.
On May 15th at 7 p.m., we are having our general meeting via Zoom. It is posted in our Facebook group at Bytown Boys SC. Thanks.
All right. So thank you all once again. That was episode 6 of Boots and Scarves, all things Ottawa sports. Thank you once again for another incredible episode. Thank you, Jeff. Signing out.
Thank you.